My name is Dylan Hughes. I'm a Formula Drift Pro driver, and this is my 2005 BMW E46. I really fell in love with the BMW chassis as soon as I drove the first one in 2019, and then I got a car that was pretty much mom-owned, so it had a bunch of miles on it, but the chassis was like perfectly clean. I picked it up for $1,000 and pretty much ruined an entirely perfect driving car and turned it into this absolute monstrosity. It is powered by a 3-liter inline 6-cylinder, actually a Toyota engine. We rev this thing to about 8,500 RPM. It makes about 950 wheel horsepower. It's a NASCAR 4-speed transmission, dog engaged, so you don't necessarily have to use the clutch to shift it, which is actually pretty cool. So this is a car that essentially I had built at the beginning of last year to run in the Formula Drift Pro season. This will be its second season going on the car, and we use Steelit to paint the entire chassis top to bottom, inside and out. I've been really impressed with the paint on this thing. It's actually held up incredibly well over the entire year, and the drifting is not easy on paint at all. There's a lot of things flying up off the tires. That tire smoke kind of leaves like a really gross kind of stickiness, and it's really easy to wipe off of this car. Just as an example, if you look right here, this is it's called a Garrett G42 1200 turbo. So that turbo is good for right at about 1,000 wheel horsepower on a 2JZ. And what's crazy about that is I never had a blanket on it at all, anytime ever. And we run these things absolutely wide open on the red line for up to a minute at a time. It pretty much runs out of tires before it gets too hot. If you look at that Steelit coating actually held up on this strut bar here that I made incredibly well. That is over a year of that thing being on there. That turbo gets red hot every time we drive this car. And just to see that there's no bubbling, no flaking, no peeling on that paint at all. So that's really impressive to me. So the cool part about this Steelit stuff is that this coating, when you have to go and match it, it matches perfectly right out of the can. So the chassis was actually sprayed out of the gun in a booth, but I actually matched the door bar with just the stuff out of the can, and it's unbelievable how well that it actually matches. Like, you literally can't even tell. I had to add these 2 little tubes right here, so I had to cut the whole thing up and grind it all up, and I was actually really bummed about it. But with this Steelit coating, you can't even tell, and that's the best part about this stuff. And if you had to at the track, say you run into something real hard, you actually can weld through this stuff, which is really impressive to me. So you don't have time to get out the grinder and make it all pretty, you can just blast right through it if you have to, which is really cool to me. My father and I were the only 2 that touched this car. Chris Forsberg helped along the way, of course, too. But every single weld, every single piece on this car was done by me or my father over the past year. It took us about 7 months to build this thing, so fairly in-depth build on this thing, and I'm incredibly proud of it. So check it out, this is my rig.